It started with a laugh that wasn't funny, a cruel, arrogant laugh that echoed across the luxury restaurant where dreams came to serve the rich. Amara adjusted her apron, forcing a smile as she approached the corner table, the kind that radiated wealth, perfume, and ego. There sat Richard Langston, the millionaire everyone in the city knew. A man who believed money could measure worth, and words were weapons meant to wound. He didn't look at her when he spoke. "Waitress," he said, waving a diamond-studded hand. "You look smart. Tell me something. Ever wish you were rich?" She blinked, confused but polite. "Everyone dreams, sir." He chuckled, swirling his wine. "Then I'll make you a deal. I'll give you $100,000. If you can serve me in Chinese." The table exploded in laughter. His friend slapped the table, mocking her, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. Richard smirked, his tone dripping arrogance. "What do you say, sweetheart? Try it, impress me." For a heartbeat, Amara said nothing. Her gaze lowered, not in shame but control. She set the menu down, leaned slightly forward, and in flawless Mandarin she said, "先生, 您想吃什么?" "What would you like to eat, sir?" Silence. The laughter died. The smirk vanished. Even the jazz stopped mattering. Richard blinked, as if the air had been punched out of him. Amara stood tall, her voice calm, unshaken. "Would you like me to continue in Mandarin? Or Cantonese?" she asked softly. He stared. His guests froze. She smiled faintly. "Because I can do both." And just like that, the power in the room shifted. What no one knew then was that this moment, this single bet, would uncover 9 languages, a broken past, and a story that would humble a millionaire before the world. The restaurant had fallen into stunned silence. Even the music seemed to hesitate, afraid to interrupt what had just happened. Richard Langston, the man who mocked, sat speechless for the first time in years. Amara gave a polite nod and walked away as if nothing had happened. But behind that calm face was a storm that had raged for years. As she poured wine at another table, flashes of her past flickered in her mind like broken film reels. The world had never handed her kindness. She'd earned every scrap of dignity with sleepless nights and aching hands. She grew up in the rough part of Atlanta, where broken streetlights hummed louder than hope. Her mother worked 3 jobs, her father gone before she learned to spell his name. Their tiny apartment smelled of soap and struggle, and every night her mother would whisper, "Education is your power, Amara. Learn their words, and they can never silence you." Those words became her weapon. While other kids played outside, Amara read old library books, French, Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, anything she could find. She copied symbols, sounds, accents, until the letters started singing in her mind. By 17, she could speak 5 languages. By 29, but life didn't reward her brilliance. Doors closed, scholarships slipped away, and interviews ended the same way, with polite smiles that didn't hide prejudice. So she took the only job she could find, serving tables for people who thought she didn't belong. Now, standing in that elegant restaurant under crystal chandeliers, she could still hear her mother's voice in her head. "Never bow, even when you serve." Richard watched her from his table, his pride burning under her quiet confidence. His friends whispered in disbelief. "Did you see that? She actually spoke Chinese," one muttered. He forced a laugh to mask his humiliation. "Lucky guess," he said, waving it off. "Probably memorized a few lines." But even he didn't sound convinced. When Amara returned to his table, his eyes were sharper now, probing. "Tell me, where'd you learn that?" She smiled faintly. "Everywhere I wasn't supposed to." He frowned, leaning forward. "You saying you speak more than just that?" Her tone was steady. 9 languages, sir. But tonight I'm just your waitress." The table went still again, and though Richard smirked to hide his discomfort, something inside him shifted, a flicker of curiosity, maybe shame. As Amara walked away, a quiet murmur followed her. People had noticed. Cameras had recorded. That single moment, a bet meant to humiliate, was about to become something far greater. By the next morning, Amara's life would no longer belong to her. The moment had been meant to humiliate her. A bet thrown like a knife across a room of laughter. But someone at table 12 had been filming. A woman in a red dress, amused by the arrogance, had caught everything. Richard's challenge, the laughter, and Amara's flawless reply in Mandarin. By midnight, that clip hit social media. A caption burned across the screen. "Millionaire mocks black waitress, gets destroyed in Chinese." Within hours, the internet erupted. Comments flooded in. "Who is she? She's brilliant. This is what grace under pressure looks like." By dawn, the video had crossed 5 million views. By noon, it was on every newsfeed, and by evening, Amara's phone buzzed nonstop. messages from journalists, strangers, old classmates who suddenly remembered her name. But she didn't know any of it yet. That morning, she walked to work as usual, hoodie pulled up, headphones in, the city waking around her. The air smelled like rain and coffee. She had no idea the world was watching. When she entered the restaurant, everyone stopped talking. Some smiled, some stared. Her manager, Mr. Collins, rushed over, face pale but glowing. "Amara," he whispered, "do you have any idea what's happening right now?" She frowned. Did something happen? He pulled out his phone and showed her the clip. Her heart froze. There she was, calm, composed, speaking Mandarin while a table of wealthy men gawked in disbelief. The comments scrolled endlessly. People called her queen, genius, inspiration. But as she scrolled further, her stomach tightened. Not all comments were kind. Some mocked her, twisted the story, accused her of arrogance. The internet's applause came with knives. Still, deep down, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Power. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Langston's phone wouldn't stop buzzing either. But his calls were not from fans. Investors were canceling meetings. His assistant whispered, "Sir, this is everywhere. They're calling you racist." Richard slammed his phone down, jaw tight. "Over a waitress?" he muttered. "No, I won't let this ruin me." He didn't know it yet, but fate had already decided. He and Amara were tied together now, by a single bet that the whole world had witnessed. And as night fell again, one question spread like wildfire across every screen. Who is the waitress who speaks 9 languages? The answer would soon shake the world. By the second day, Amara's name was everywhere. News anchors said it with awe, influencers said it with envy, and strangers whispered it like a new kind of legend. The waitress who spoke 9 languages. Her phone couldn't keep up. Emails from talent agencies, interviews from morning shows, offers from language schools and corporations, all begging for a story, a soundbite, a face to admire. For the first time in years, people weren't looking through her. They were looking at her. But fame, Amara learned quickly, is a storm that doesn't ask before it hits. Cameras waited outside the restaurant now. Customers came not for food, but for a photo. Some smiled and told her how inspiring she was. Others whispered things that stung, comments she'd learned to ignore but never forgot. Her manager, nervous but proud, approached her. "You need to take time off, Amara. This is big. You can't hide here forever." But Amara shook her head. "I'm not running from anything. I was a waitress yesterday, and I'm still one today." Still, the truth was heavier than her words. Every smile she gave the cameras came with a silent ache. She missed the quiet, the peace before the noise. Across the city, Richard Langston's world was crumbling. His brand was now a symbol of arrogance. His social accounts flooded with outrage. Sponsors dropped out. Old allies suddenly couldn't be reached. He stared at his reflection in the glass window of his penthouse. The same reflection that once looked invincible now looked small. His assistant spoke carefully. "Sir, people want a statement. Some are saying you should apologize publicly." Richard's jaw tightened. Apologize for what? For having a sense of humor? But even he didn't believe his own words. The silence that followed was heavier than pride. Later that night, as he scrolled through the viral video for the 100th time, something caught his eye. Not the laughter, not the humiliation, but her eyes. There was no anger in them, no revenge, just calm strength, and it bothered him. He slammed his laptop shut. "Find her," he said to his assistant. "I want to talk to her, privately." The next morning, while Amara was taking an order, a man in a gray suit entered the restaurant and handed her an envelope. Inside was a single card. "Richard Langston requests a private meeting. One conversation, no cameras." Her hands trembled slightly as she read the note. Everyone around her was watching. Some whispered, "Don't go." Others said, "He's going to apologize." But Amara didn't know what to expect. For once, the girl who'd learned every language to defend her dignity stood at a crossroads, between the world that had mocked her and the man who started it all. And she decided to go. The city glowed gold that evening, but inside the luxury hotel lounge the air felt cold. Amara arrived quietly. No makeup, no cameras, no entourage. Just the same calm face that had stunned the world. Richard Langston was already there, seated near the window overlooking the skyline. He looked different, not the arrogant, loud man from that night, but a tired version of him. His designer suit couldn't hide the weight on his shoulders. When she approached, he stood up awkwardly. "Amara," he said, voice low. "Thank you for coming." She nodded politely and sat down. "You asked for a meeting. I assume this isn't about another bet." He flinched a little but forced a smile. "No bets this time." For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the city below. Finally, he said, "Look, I messed up. I thought I was being funny. But what I said was cruel," Amara finished softly. "It was cruel, Mr. Langston." He swallowed. "Yes, it was." Her eyes stayed steady on him. "Do you know what it feels like to be invisible? To work twice as hard for half the respect? To have people assume you're less just because of your skin, your uniform, your job?" He looked away, ashamed. "I didn't think. I've lived in a world where everyone laughs at my jokes. No one tells me when I'm wrong. Maybe that's the problem," she said. "No one tells you." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You don't understand what this video did to me. My company's bleeding, my reputation." Amara interrupted gently. "What it did to you." Her voice wasn't angry, but it cut through him like glass. "For me," she continued, "it was just another day of being humiliated. Only difference is this time the world saw it. I didn't ask to go viral. I just spoke your language. And somehow that turned into a war." He sat in silence. The truth stung, but it was deserved. Then, to her surprise, Richard reached into his briefcase and pulled out a check. He slid it across the table.
100,000.
"The offer was real," he said quietly. "You earned it." Amara looked at it for a long moment, then pushed it back toward him. "I don't want your money, Mr. Langston. What I want is change. Not for me, for people like me." He looked up confused. "Change?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Next time you sit in a room like that, use your power to lift someone, not laugh at them." Her words landed heavier than any slap. For the first time in years, Richard felt small, not because of shame, but because he'd finally met someone bigger than his ego. As Amara stood to leave, she turned once more and said, "You wanted to teach me my place, but maybe I was meant to teach you yours." Then she walked away, and that night something cracked open in Richard Langston's heart, a realization that the woman he'd mocked might just be the one to save him. 2 days after the meeting, Amara returned to her quiet apartment. The same peeling walls, the same flickering bulb, but something inside her felt different. She hadn't taken the money. She hadn't sought revenge. Yet somehow she'd won something far greater, her dignity. Still, the world wasn't done with her story. Her phone buzzed again, this time with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A familiar voice replied, "Amara, it's Richard Langston." She froze. "How did you get my number?" He chuckled softly, though it wasn't arrogant anymore. "Let's just say I have resources. But don't hang up. I need a minute of your time." She sighed. "You already said what you needed to say." "Not everything," he said. "You told me to use my power to lift someone instead of laughing at them. I've been thinking about that nonstop." There was a pause. Then he continued. "I'm creating a new foundation, the Amara Initiative, a program to fund education for underprivileged youth who want to learn languages, technology, or business. I want you to run it." Amara's breath caught. "What?" "I'm offering you the director's position. Full salary, full creative control. You'll be helping thousands of kids who grew up just like you." Her heart raced. "Why me?" "Because no one else has lived it the way you have," Richard said quietly. "And because I owe you more than an apology. You woke me up." Amara was silent. The city outside her window seemed to hum with a new kind of energy. She thought about her mother. Those nights she'd whispered, "Learn their words, and they can never silence you." Maybe this was what her mother meant all along. "I'll think about it," she said softly. "That's all I ask," Richard replied. After the call, she sat on her small couch, phone still in hand, staring into nothing. Part of her wanted to say yes, to finally turn pain into purpose. Another part of her was scared. What if it was just a PR stunt? What if it wasn't real? The next morning, the world got its answer. Richard Langston held a press conference. Cameras flashed, microphones lined up. He stepped forward, cleared his throat, and said, "I want to publicly apologize to Amara Johnson. I humiliated someone extraordinary, and she showed me what real strength looks like." Reporters gasped as he continued. "Today I'm funding the Amara Initiative. She has agreed to lead it, and I'll be her first donor. $1 million. Amara watched the broadcast live, tears welling in her eyes. She hadn't even said yes yet, but deep down she knew she would. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't anger, it's transformation. A week later, Amara stood in front of a glass building downtown, the new headquarters of the Amara Initiative. The sign gleamed under the morning sun, and for a moment she just stared at it, breath trembling. Her name on a building. It didn't feel real. She had worn her mother's old bracelet that day. Faded gold. slightly bent but priceless in meaning. "This is for you, Mama," she whispered. Inside, journalists buzzed, cameras flashed, and banners displayed phrases like education for every voice and empowerment through language. But Amara's focus wasn't on the spectacle. It was on the people. Dozens of young faces, students, dreamers, kids from neighborhoods like hers, waiting with hopeful eyes. When she stepped onto the small stage, silence fell. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady but soft. "A few weeks ago I was just a waitress. People laughed at me for who I was, but I learned something important. Sometimes life doesn't give you a stage until someone tries to silence you." The room listened. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "Knowledge gave me strength. Languages gave me freedom. But kindness gave me purpose. And that's what this foundation is about. Giving people the tools to speak for themselves." Applause erupted. Cameras clicked. Richard Langston, standing quietly at the back, lowered his head, not out of shame this time, but pride. After the ceremony, he approached her, extending his hand. "You were brilliant." She smiled. "So were you for listening." He chuckled softly. "I'm still learning." Amara nodded. "We all are." Over the next few weeks, the Amara initiative took off faster than anyone expected. Applications flooded in from around the world. Kids who wanted to study, mothers who wanted to work, young men who wanted a second chance. Amara spent her days in meetings, classrooms, interviews, helping, teaching, building. Yet every night, she'd return to her small apartment and remind herself, stay humble, stay human. Meanwhile, Richard began volunteering quietly, not for the cameras, but for himself. He visited schools, donated anonymously, and listened more than he spoke. One evening, as he watched Amara teach a group of children their first French words, he smiled faintly. "You know," he said, "you changed more than just my reputation. You changed my definition of success." Amara looked at him. "And what's that now?" He smiled. "Success isn't about being served. It's about serving something bigger than yourself." For the first time, they both laughed. Not as millionaire and waitress. Not as power and humility, but as two people who finally understood each other. And though neither said it out loud, they both knew. This was only the beginning. For a while, everything felt perfect. The Amara initiative was thriving. Classrooms full, scholarships rolling out, media calling her the voice of change. Richard had become a quiet ally, and the world seemed to finally be listening. But success, Amara learned, carries its own kind of loneliness. Late nights became her routine. The glow of her laptop replaced sleep, and the weight of expectations settled heavy on her shoulders. Every decision mattered now. Every word she said was quoted. Every silence analyzed. Then one morning, her assistant rushed in, holding a tablet. "You need to see this." The headline burned across the screen. "Viral waitress or publicity pawn? Critics question the Amara initiative's intentions." Her heart dropped. The article twisted everything, claiming Richard had created the foundation to clean his image, that Amara was just a face for corporate guilt. Comments followed. "She's being used. No one changes overnight. It's all PR." For the first time since that night in the restaurant, Amara felt small again. She shut her office door, sitting quietly at her desk. The city roared outside, but inside, she felt nothing but silence. When Richard entered later, she didn't look up. "You saw it?" she asked softly. He nodded. "I did." "They think it's fake," she whispered. "Everything we built. They think it's a lie." Richard hesitated before replying. "Then we show them it's real." She looked up, eyes tired. "How? You can't PR your way out of truth." He sighed, taking a seat across from her. "I used to believe money could fix everything, but maybe this time we don't fight back with words. We fight back with action." Amara frowned. "Action?" He smiled faintly. "We go to them. The neighborhoods, the kids, the families. No cameras, no speeches, just help. Let them tell our story." She stared at him. The same man who once mocked her now talking about humility. It almost made her smile. That weekend they did exactly that. Together they visited schools, community centers, shelters, giving books, funding programs, sitting with people and listening. No press, no photographers, just real faces and real stories. One evening, a little girl ran up to Amara and hugged her tightly. "Miss Amara," she said shyly, "when I grow up, I want to speak 9 languages too." Amara knelt down, tears in her eyes. "You will, sweetheart. You already speak the most important one, kindness." Richard watched the moment quietly from afar. It wasn't about redemption anymore. It was about purpose. When they returned to the city weeks later, The same journalists who once doubted them began writing new headlines. From viral scandal to real change, the Amara Initiative delivers hope. Amara smiled when she saw it, but her voice stayed humble. We're just getting started. Because even after conquering the world, she knew the true battle was still inside her. The night after their last outreach trip, Amara sat alone in her office, lights dimmed, the city glowing below like scattered stars. For the first time in weeks, there was quiet. The kind of quiet that brings back memories you try to forget. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her pick up. Hello? A familiar, trembling voice replied. Amara, it's Auntie Rose. Her breath caught. Auntie? Is everything okay? There was a pause, heavy and soft. Honey, your mama's been sick. She didn't want you to worry while you were building all this. But now she keeps asking for you. Amara's heart stopped. Sick? How long? She's been hiding it. Doctors say it's her heart. For a moment, Amara couldn't speak. All the success, the noise, the headlines, they vanished. All that remained was the image of her mother's tired smile, the woman who taught her to fight with words instead of anger. I'll be on the next flight, she whispered. When she arrived home, everything looked smaller. The streets, the houses, even the sky. In the dim light of the old apartment, her mother lay on a worn couch, thinner now, eyes still full of warmth. Baby, her mother said weakly, you look just like your father when you're tired. Amara knelt beside her, tears slipping down. Why didn't you tell me? Her mother smiled faintly. You were busy changing the world. I didn't want to slow you down. Amara shook her head. You're my world. They sat together for hours, no cameras, no fame, just two souls bound by love and survival. Her mother reached out and touched the bracelet on Amara's wrist. You kept it. I always will, Amara said. Her mother's voice softened. I saw you on TV, speaking all those languages, making those rich folks listen. She chuckled faintly. You did it, baby. You turned their laughter into your strength. Amara leaned forward, whispering through tears. I just wish you could see everything I'm building. Her mother's eyes glistened. I don't need to. I already see it, right here. She tapped her daughter's chest. Because what you're building isn't a foundation, it's a legacy. That night, Amara sat by her side, watching her sleep. The hum of the old apartment mixed with the heartbeat she prayed wouldn't fade. And for the first time since the night of the restaurant, Amara prayed, not for strength, not for success, but for time. The next morning, as sunlight slipped through the curtains, she whispered, I'll keep going. Mama, no matter what, I promise. Outside, the world was waiting for her again. But this time, she carried something greater than fame or forgiveness. She carried home. Weeks later, the city skyline shimmered under dawn light as Amara returned to her office. Her mother was recovering slowly, surrounded by nurses and the hum of quiet love. Every night, they still spoke. Amara reading her letters from students around the world. Letters written in 9 different languages, all saying the same thing, thank you. That morning, Amara walked into the new training center, the heart of the Amara Initiative. The walls were filled with maps, words, laughter, and dreams. Children recited phrases in Mandarin, French, Arabic, and Swahili. To them, language wasn't power, it was connection. As she passed through the hallway, a young boy tugged her sleeve. Miss Amara, he said shyly, why do you speak so many languages? She knelt to his height, smiling. Because every language is a key, and the more keys you hold, the more doors you can open, for yourself and for others. He grinned and ran off. Amara stood there for a moment, feeling her heart swell. A voice behind her said, You know, I still can't speak Chinese. She turned. Richard stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. Smiling. Humble now, lighter somehow. She laughed softly. You should come to class then. He handed her a cup. Only if you're the teacher. They walked through the bustling center, watching students learn. Volunteers teach, dreams grow. Richard looked at her, admiration in his eyes. You changed the meaning of service. Amara, when I said that cruel thing that night, I thought I was testing you. But really life was testing me. She looked out at the children. And you passed. He smiled faintly. No, we did. Later that evening, Amara sat at her desk, writing a letter, not for the world, but for herself. Dear Mama, you told me once that education is freedom. You were right, but I've learned something more. Forgiveness is too. The man who once mocked me became my partner in change. The girl they laughed at became the voice they listened to. And maybe that's what life is, not revenge but redemption. She placed the letter beside her mother's old bracelet, its gold catching the last light of sunset. Outside, the world still buzzed with headlines, cameras, and noise. But inside, Amara felt peace, the kind that speaks without words. As she locked up and stepped into the cool night air, she whispered one last phrase, her favorite, not in Mandarin, not in French, but in the only language that truly mattered. Thank you. Because no matter how many tongues she mastered, gratitude was the one that made her human. And as she walked away, city lights reflecting in her eyes, it was clear the girl who was once mocked for serving others had learned the greatest truth of all. The most powerful language is the language of the heart.